Finally, we're making some changes. Yes. Is your insurance rates going down? Yes. Are they going up? Also, yes. Let's get into it. We're going to go over this. Michigan currently is very low for uninsured motorists. We are currently 20% uninsured as a state, but when we look further into Detroit, which tends to be our insurance death zone, so to speak, they're about 40% of that. So they're the majority that are having trouble. And part of it is because the rates are ridiculous. So the national average, I'm just going to pull this up. This came right from Zebra. It's an insurance comparison website. But they said we're 83% higher than the national average. So the cost of Michigan, the average cost per year in Michigan is $2,693 per year. That's pretty high. The average for the nation as a group is $1,470 per year. So wait on it. Wait for this one. Ready? The cost average for Detroit is $5,464 per year. Holy crap. Today we're going to learn about the Michigan reform, why your rates in insurance in Michigan are supposed to go down pretty drastically for some of you. So there's a lot of change happening, and this is going to be kind of like a summary of everything. There's a 122-page reform that's just created an uproar because they're completely revamping the way that Michigan does their insurance, which is actually, in my opinion, a really good thing, although there are some negatives. The biggest question is, are your insurance rates in Michigan going down? Quick answer, yes, for the majority of people. But there is a little bit of a caveat to that because there are a lot of changes that you're going to have to make in order to take advantage of those. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go through that in this video here. Don't be worried if you miss some of it and you just need to see it physically. I've actually created and typed up a reform cheat sheet, so I'm actually going to link that below. You guys can actually download a copy of that as well, so that way you can kind of look at it. If you want to keep up to date with everything, I'm going to constantly be on this. Michigan just happens to be my home state. That's where I sell insurance, although I am licensed in multiple states. That's kind of the majority of the business that I do. I'm trying to keep this away from me specifically because this entire channel was designed more for you guys so that you guys can just learn about the things in insurance that'll make you smarter to make better decisions that will allow you to save money. Ultimately, hopefully that's the goal, and as some of you have probably seen in a lot of the comments of my videos, there's a lot of savings out there. There's 3 parts of this video that we're going to go through. The main thing is what you need to know, how it will affect you, and then what are your next steps. So the first thing you need to know is, when is this taking effect? It is July of 2020. That's when the actual reform takes place. Its length or lifespan is going to be 8 years. So it's kind of like, I call it a trial period. It's like 2 terms as a president, right? It's basically going to last until July 2028. The first thing that you're going to notice is that the state minimums are no longer going to be as low as they are, which is a huge plus. I personally don't think that we had high enough limits, so they're going to be raising those. Will that raise your premiums? A little bit. But when we go over the discounts, there's going to be a lot more discounts going forward than there are raises. So state minimums currently Michigan is $20,000 per person. So each person that you had hit, $40,000 per accident. So the max could be $40,000. Now it's going to be $5,100. So $50,000 per person, $100,000 per accident. In the past, this didn't affect you as much because Michigan's that no-fault state, right? If you get in an accident, you go your way, I go my way, and they subrogate. So the insurance companies fight it out in the background. So then that's basically how that's determined. Going forward, because they're changing the PIP, and that's going to be one of these bullet points here, is that's actually going to cause a lot of this medical to kind of take more effect. So it's actually going to be a coverage that you want to make sure that you have enough of. Well, let's just dive into it. So personal injury protection, that's basically the PIP. That's the main reason that Michigan insurance is so high. You'll see on your bill, there's 2 pieces. There's PIP and there's an MCCA fee. That's Michigan Catastrophic Association fee. So those are both medical. What that is personal injury protection. Currently, it's unlimited. If you get an accident, I lose my arm, it's $3 million to fix. I got in-home care. It's, $5 million 10 years from now, right? That's covered completely. but there is a fee to it because that's why our insurance is so high. As collective as Michigan, we're all paying little pieces of it just in case one of us gets injured like that. A lot of people have their own medical, and that's been a complaint. I mean, it's been like 30 plus years since they've been trying to change this. So a lot of people are pretty upset about that, and that's one of the main things they're changing. What they're going to allow us to start doing is they're going to offer 5 different types of personal injury protection. If you're 65 or older, I believe as long as you have medical, you can completely remove it. Now, you'll still have the MCCA fee, which doesn't quite make sense to me why it's still there. It's like $45, and that's per car. So you're going to have that fee still on there. It's just the way the reform has allowed them to do it. That's the first option. The second option is if you have Medicaid. That's the next lowest level. And the requirement is everyone in your entire household, your spouse and any kids or anything like that, has to be covered on the Medicaid as well. It can't just be me and someone over here that doesn't have it. It has to be the household. As long as your household has Medicaid, they'll allow you to do the next lowest limits, which is $50,000. The other people that don't have Medicaid or aren't 65 or older and have their own medical are going to be optional. So you're going to be able to do $250,000. So if you want to have that's a pretty decent amount of medical, you can do $500,000. And for those that want to keep the same limits, you can do unlimited still. The only negative to this whole reform with this section is the unlimited, because right now it's the entire state of Michigan. We're all paying into that. It's going to be a lot lower of a bucket or a pool to be in. Some are going to be Medicaid, some are going to have none, some are going to have $250,000, some are going to be unlimited. But because that's shrinking down, you're probably going to see about a 10% price increase because there's more of a risk for that to be paid out around that small pool of people that are in it. I personally think a lot of people for now are going to keep that in the majority, especially since not everybody knows this is happening. Definitely share this video with anybody that's in Michigan that you know. They need to know this stuff because this is coming up pretty quickly, and there's a lot of things that could save them. This could literally save them on the low end $120 a year, and they can go upwards of $1,200 plus per year. So it's a huge, huge savings with all these changes. So what will you actually save with the PIP? So it depends on the level. I believe it's like 20%, then 35%, then 45%, depending on which levels you go with. Obviously, the lower levels are going to save the most, and so on and so forth. But that's not the only piece. Imagine currently in Michigan, we're all rated against tons of factors that we can't control. Well, maybe we could. Go get married, right? That's one of the factors. So they can't rate you for marital status. They can't rate you for not owning a home. They can't rate you for your credit score. That's huge. They can't rate for the location, so the zip code. They're going to now have to go into a territory. So it's going to be a larger pool. Same thing. Instead of being in 49508 or 494 whatever, right? They have to do the majority of these zip codes combined together. They haven't detailed that exactly yet, so we don't know the exact answers to that, but I'm pretty certain that's what that's going to be, is like the census. They're not going to be able to rate for occupation anymore, and they're also not going to be able to rate for your education level. So currently, a lot of these companies, if you have a college degree, they're going to give you a better deal. Not all companies do that, so there are some out there that do some of them, some don't. So that's kind of one of those things that's that one's not going to be as big of a factor, but it is. It helps with certain company. Make sure you guys stay tuned to the end because I want to go over the next steps. There's a ton of really good information. If you guys have kind of already been overwhelmed, there's a ton of stuff to go over. You can pause here if need be. If you just want to download the document, I'll put it in the description below. I hope you guys are getting really good value out of this. If so, definitely give me a thumbs up. Wouldn't hurt to subscribe if you guys want to keep up to date with everything, or if you just want more insurance advice. I'm working on currently a huge discount list right now. I'm trying to do 50 or even 100 discounts that people just don't know about on their insurance. The mini tort is changing. So currently that's $1,000, it's going to $3,000. That's actually a really good benefit because what that does is that allows you to go after the person that was at fault and have their insurance pay back up to $1,000. Right now that's going to go to $3,000. So if you have a $3,000 or even a $4,000 car, it may be worth it to debate whether you should carry full coverage. That'll cut your costs down pretty drastically because full coverage can get pretty pricey. Obviously, the older the car is, they're not charging as much, So kind of play with those numbers and see what fits you best. So the biggest thing that I took away from one of the sections is kind of a rating that a lot of these companies are going to absolutely hate. And this is something you guys don't see in the news. This is the one thing out of all the articles that I personally read, I didn't see one person mention this. Until January of 2022, write that down if you're taking notes, the insurance companies will not be able to rate against you for having a lapse in insurance if you were qualified. It's Section 3101 is what they call it. So basically that's who qualifies for insurance. So they're not going to be able to charge extra premium for it, which currently is huge. If you currently have a lapse in insurance for a day, it's massive. Now keep in mind this is only going to be until January 2022, so if you don't currently have insurance, that's going to be a huge benefit. So some of the questions I was kind of thinking is, are my insurance rates really going down? The short answer is yes. They absolutely are going down unless you don't make a change. If you don't make a change, you'll probably see about a 10% increase, which isn't uncommon. I mean, you see increases all the time. AAA could be great today. 3 to 5 years from now, it's Citizens Insurance or Liberty Mutual or Farmers Insurance. Like whoever at that time, it fluctuates so much based on the loss. So they take in certain risks, they take in certain loss, and they weigh it and they raise or lower their prices based on that. They're trying to make a certain profit margin. So it's always changing. But I think in the long term, this is going to be a really big benefit to a lot of people. To go in the negative, I wanted to at least talk of some of the disadvantages I think that this reform may cause. Think about this. Right now, if you go to the doctor today, your doctor sends you in and says, get a CAT scan or get an MRI, whatever it is. They charge you a certain fee. Well, by law, the government has allowed them to charge car accidents like 200 to 250% more for that fee. Well, they're going to limit that in this reform, so that's also going to cut back a little bit, although in a 3-year period, they're going to allow them to kind of ramp it back up. So even though the prices will start lower, they could get a little bit higher because of the medical, and that's the disadvantage, is not necessarily that, but I feel like this reform may cause our actual medical insurance, a completely separate thing, to go higher. Because if we end up being negative as a state, so we don't have enough money in the insurance industry and in the MCCA fees and all of that to cover the medical that is happening over here, it's going to naturally flow into the insurance for our medical. And that's already pretty high. So it's kind of a lose-lose. So we'll have to see. The other negative is depending on your location. So right now, let's just pretend you're in the center of Detroit or the center of Grand Rapids and you're in a high-risk area, right? These specific zip codes. Well, those are gone. You can't rate those. If they go off the census and they say, okay, well, we're going to take the surrounding areas of Detroit or the surrounding areas of Grand Rapids or Wyoming or Ypsilanti or wherever you're at, like Farmington Hills. They're going to take those and they're going to mix them as a larger unit. So the people that have a really low risk area, almost no claims, no theft, things like that, they're going to be kind of bundled in with a medium or higher risk, so that will negatively affect theirs. Their insurance rates will go up a little bit, and then the higher risk ones will come down a little bit, and then it'll adjust itself. So it's going to take some time, but then they'll actually kind of level out where it's even. The last negative effect is something that doesn't affect many people. This is more for the person that has claimed the PIP and needs home care. So home care is currently unlimited along with the medical. They are limiting it to per week 56 hours. I don't know how that affects people. I haven't actually seen anyone use that to that extent, but that would be more the situation where you're in a wheelchair, you need constant home care, someone that feeds you or someone that helps you bathe, things like that. So right now, 56 hours per week feels like enough. But correct me if I'm wrong. If you are one of those people or know somebody, let me know how much constant hours you think they would need. And do you think that is fair? Put that in the comment. That's okay to complain a little bit down there, so you can let us know because we want to know more about that piece as well. I made a 6-bullet point checklist of the next steps you should take. The very first of the 5 that I'm going to recommend is you contact your current insurance provider. Hopefully it's an agent. I don't feel like your 800 numbers, like 1-800 blah, 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 is going to help you enough. Because when I worked in the call center like that, when I was licensed in all 48 plus states, none of us knew this stuff. They would have an update, huge changes for a state like New York would have a change, and it would be put on a page that we're supposed to read, although they were so busy making sales that nobody went to that page and read it. So if you have those 800 numbers, maybe try them, give them a shot. I'm not saying you should jump off ship right away, but find out. If you have a local agent, I'm hoping that they get trained on this. Our agency, the one that I work under, currently trains our agents twice a week. So we have things like this, underwriting concerns, we learn about boats and motorcycles and all the stuff that you guys want and know. So that's one of the things I hope a lot of agencies are continuing as well, where they're constantly making themselves better and learning the insurance changes in your state. The second part is know your medical risk. So you now have choices with your medical limits. Me, I might stay with unlimited for a while. I'm kind of curious to see what the insurance companies do, and I don't want to have that situation where I'm not covered. I do see the value in having that higher limit. If not, I may bump it down to the 500,000. I'm a little bit undecided myself, but that's a pretty good amount of coverage. I just kind of have that fear in my mind, like if I have that major claim, I've got some daughters and I want them to be protected as well. So I want to make sure that I get the right coverage. So that's a good thing to think of, is what your income level is at, whether you can afford to lower the coverage or whether you should just stick with what you currently have. The third one is to think about what area you're in. So if you're going to plan on moving in the next 6 to 18 months, you may want to debate what location you're going to. Now that's something a lot of people don't think about. They just pick the spot and that's where I'm going to live. And then, oh my goodness, my insurance has tripled. That's crazy. So something to think about, not only when you're buying a car, but also when you're moving a location. Find out kind of if that's a good place to be. Maybe do a quote on the insurance in that area. On average, I typically save anywhere from $600 and some odd a year. In most of those cases, we actually upped their coverages, giving them more, because a lot of people don't really, when they're doing these quotes, they're not watching my very first video that I posted somewhere over here, I'll link, but they don't know what coverages they should carry, so they just go based off of what they were given before. Well, you're in a different job, you're owning a house, your lifestyle has changed, so you may not have the right coverages. So I mean, just in general, talk to your agent. If you don't have an agent to talk to and you guys want a quote, I will also link that below, so then you guys can fill out some information. I'd be happy to quote you, or at least refer you to a place that would be able to quote you pretty competitively. I personally work with like 17 different companies, so that is a huge benefit. But keep in mind, that's not the point of the video. The entire point of this video is to explain the reform in language that I would want to understand, and these are the questions that I had when it first came up. Lastly, keep up to date with this information. I don't believe a lot of this is going to change, so this video is going to probably be pretty relevant for a while. However, if there is a change, go and download the guide that I'm creating. I will keep you up to date. If you don't want to do that, just stop on back every once in a while and just see if there's any new updates for Michigan. Anyways, guys, I hope you liked the video. If you did, thumbs up. If you know somebody in Michigan, don't forget to share this with them. They need to know this information. It's such a big change. It's exciting to see. I can't wait to see what kind of discounts happen. If you're watching this video in the future and you've already made the change, let me know in the comments below what you found to be a struggle, but also what you found to be successful. Like, what kind of rate changes did you see? What kind of medical did you choose? I'm very interested to see what those changes are. Otherwise, if this is pre-July of 2020, those numbers are so weird. If this is pre-July of 2020, let me know also what you think. Do you think this is going to have a positive impact on Michigan? Do you think it's going to make our medical go crazy? Or do you think in general it's good? I personally think it's a good idea, not necessarily because I think it's going to be successful, although I think a lot of it will be and it's going to help. Even if it completely fails, I think the reason is it's going to give us a revamp. In 8 years, we're going to take back and say, okay, this was a complete flop, or this was a really good success. However, we lost some parts of it here. I think that's going to help a lot because we're going to revamp it and just make it right again. Give me the thumbs up if you liked it. Share it with friends. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to know more. Otherwise, I will see you guys in the next one.